Yeah, and we of course talk about this all the time, that it's so hard to get true snow here, right? Because we have all of these, things that have to line up. So a lot of times you're not necessarily just getting freezing rain, but you're getting more of a mix than you are straight snow. And of course, sleets is more of a nuisance, not necessarily as dangerous as freezing rain, but it's so hard to get this. What I'm looking at the video thinking about is how the only people in these videos that still works here is Richard Devane and Chris Mulkey. So I'm just like, oh my goodness, we've gone through so many people the last 7 years. But Richard Devane, a king of all kings, one of our longest reporters right there. Ooh, gross.
Good stuff. It's been a while since we've had bad snow. It's been a while since we've had bad ice. So, there's no such thing as being due in weather. I'm really not a believer in that. But it's been a while. It's been a while since we've had a lot of these bad events. So,
who wants to be due for a freezing
snow.
rain event?
I don't think.
No one wants
Exactly.
that.
I don't think anybody ever roots for ice. I really don't think that. A lot of people right now, Brittany, are rooting for snow. I know my DMs are flooded right now. When's it going to snow? Do we have any chances? I don't think we have a chance tomorrow night. But I will say we're going to still keep an eye on the weekend. It's not off the table to me that somebody in the Carolinas could get a little something Saturday into Sunday. I don't know who or where or if it'll happen, but it's at least a low chance and something that we'll kind of keep you updated with as we get a little closer to the weekend.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible at all that we could see snow this weekend across, like you said, other parts. That doesn't necessarily mean specifically in Greensboro or specifically in Charlotte, but the trends do.
Yeah.
We're still trending with moisture and cold air. And as we've talked about a gazillion times on this show, you need both happening essentially at the same time. What I am encouraged by, though, Tim, I was talking about this in our local forecast, is that it looks like the mountains are going to get a good little bit of snow, and they're actually pretty low in terms of snow depth. I was updating our ski resort numbers yesterday and again today, and essentially compared to last year, they're like 10 to 20 inches below where they were. Now, I know 2025 was a really good, early part of the year for man-made and natural snow in the mountains, but Ashwaubenon and Avery County really do need it, and it looks like they're going to get at least a little something.
I hope so. It's certainly a good part of their economy, and everyone wants to go up there and see the snow. Tomorrow night should be a good chance, during the day Thursday as well. But if you're going up there, you got to know it's going to be insanely cold. I mean, that wind is going to be whipping. The temperature will be low. The wind chill's probably below zero at times Thursday morning. I mean, it's going to be tough. So make sure you're ready for that.
Yeah, make sure you're ready. Make sure you're bundled up. Friday morning, too, Greensboro and Charlotte also going to be pretty bitterly cold. We'll see you at same time, same place tomorrow, and I promise I'll know that it's Wednesday.
And we'll sing.
Welcome to Live Impact News, everyone. We are going to be here from 7 to 9. Actually, starting with the president tonight. He had a very busy day, was actually at Ford headquarters with the CEO and other individuals, executives from Ford, discussing the economy and many other things right now that happened to be on the president's plate. He spoke very briefly before heading back to Capitol Hill and to Washington, D.C. earlier today. Let's listen in on what he had to say before he boarded Marine One.
Well, I don't know about Intel, but I'll invest more in other things. So, as you know, Intel came to see me. They needed help. And I said, I'll help you, but I want 10% of your company to go to the United States of America. And we made, because of that deal, tens of billions of dollars. The stock went very up and very high, and we made tens of billions of dollars. They walked away and they gave us a lot of money, but they did a great deal for themselves because their stock has gone up. As soon as we went in, Apple went in, NVIDIA went in, a lot of smart people went in, they followed us. So yeah, we're doing that. We've done other of those deals. In Alaska, we did a deal where we got a big piece of a company where we were helping them to get a road. We're the only ones that could have done it. And we said, we want something out of the company for the United States of America, okay? So I believe in that. We have some other ones that we're looking at. I believe in that. If it's up to us, if they can't do it without us, and then I say, well, we'll do it. If you were a private guy, you'd say, what do we get for doing it? Now, I don't want anything for myself. I want our country to be rich as hell. But with Intel, we made billions and billions of dollars, right?
So, Mr. President, on Iran, do you have a message for the leaders currently of Iran?
Yeah, the message is they've got to show humanity. They've got a big problem, and I hope they're not going to be killing people. And I'm going to have a report very soon. It would seem to me that they have been badly misbehaving, but that is not confirmed.
Secretary Bessent, hostage rescue effort that ended in disaster.
Well, it was a disaster for Jimmy Carter. They had all sorts of problems, and the helicopters were crashing and everything. You know what it was? The exact opposite of Venezuela. Do you agree with that? Do you agree? As a reporter, who are you with? Who are you with?
I'm with the Financial Times, sir.
Oh, good. Well, it's a nice paper.
So are you committing not to sending U.S. troops into Iran?
Why would I tell you that? Why would I don't talk about military strategy with a reporter, you know? Even though I do like the Financial Times.
Secretary Bessent.
Are you consulting with our allies regarding Iran? What are they telling you, and why do you think the Iranian...
Well, I'm not going to tell you what they're telling me. I don't tell you what they...
Why do you think the Iranian leadership continues to defy you, Mr. President?
You think they are?
Well,
it's only been a couple of days.
They continue to kill protesters.
Well, they said that about Venezuela, too, you know? It's only been a couple of days. They haven't defied me. They haven't done anything as far as we're concerned. But it looks like they're killing a lot of people, but it has not been confirmed. I'll know very soon.
On Greenland, sir, the premier of Greenland said today, we prefer to stay with Denmark. Do you see that as the final word?
Who said that?
The premier of Greenland.
Well, that's their problem. That's their problem. I disagree with them. I don't know who he is, don't know anything about him, but that's going to be a big problem for him.
Do you want to see democracy in Iran?
Ideally, you'd like to see it, but what we want to see is we don't want to see people killed, and we want to see a little bit of freedom for these people. These people have been living in hell for a long time. You know, that used to be a hell of a country. I have friends that used to invest in Iran, and they did well with their investments. It was a great place. The people were great. Even the leadership was good. And now it's living in hell. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
All right, folks, some brief remarks by the president. We'll have more from him earlier today. As I said, he was at the Ford Motor plant with executives from Ford discussing the economy. We'll get to that later on in our show. But next, we do want to go to this anti-Border Patrol protest that happened in D.C. As we have seen over the last week and a half, if not more. Very many people across the United States having differing views on what had happened in Minnesota after the shooting and killing of a woman there. So we're going to go to this protest right now in D.C.
They send mass people out into neighborhoods all over the country. These are people like Kristi Noem, directed by people like Stephen Miller. People like J.D. Vance, who was lying through his teeth the other day. And of course, headed by the liar-in-chief, the lawbreaker-in-chief, Donald Trump. So we are here to say not one more dime for Donald Trump's ICE operations. They break the law. They lie about it. You know, I remember when they said, oh, they were going to go after what they called the worst of the worst. They lied. They're going after moms taking their kids to school. They're going after dads bringing their kids home from their after-school activities. They're going after pastors on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. They're going after small business owners in Frederick, Maryland, and all over the country. They're going after people who have become community leaders, people who are loved and respected by people in their communities. ICE's own data show that more than 80% of the people they're rounding up pose no public threat, and you know what they did? They decided to get rid of the data. So in addition to breaking the laws, in addition to lying, now we see ICE killing a 37-year-old mom of 3 kids in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we are here to say, not in our country. We will not let this continue to happen. And we could all see that video with our own eyes. Put your hands up if you saw that video. We could see exactly what happened with our own eyes. And yet you have Kristi Noem and the vice president and the president trying to gaslight the country, trying to tell people that their own eyes are lying to them. Well, our eyes are not lying to them. What happened was inexcusable, and they need to stop lying about it. And we need to make sure that there's an independent investigation by the state of Minnesota. Just like in each of these cases, we need independent investigations because we're so sorry, but the reality is we cannot trust our own Department of Justice anymore under Pam Bondi. So we're in a hell of a situation. That's why it's important that you're all here, and it's important why you have independent investigations. I can give you an example from my state of Maryland. A few weeks ago on Christmas Eve, there was a vehicle ramming and a shooting. And ICE and the DHS put out their own version of events. Well, then the Anne Arundel County Police conducted their own investigation. And surprise, surprise, it turned out that DHS lied through their teeth, and they had to reverse that statement because of the independent investigation. This is why we can no longer, sadly, trust the federal agencies to conduct these investigations. Imagine what would have happened in Minneapolis in Renee Good's case if there had been no video. This is why we want every person in law enforcement, whether they're local police who have cameras or federal law enforcement agencies, they should all be wearing cameras so that we can see exactly what has happened. You know, myself and my office have been working with a mom from the state of Maryland. She lived here 20 years. She has 4 kids. She was snatched off the streets by ICE a couple weeks ago. She asked to be released to be able to visit with her 15-year-old son who was dying of cancer. They said no. Shame. They said no. He died the next day. Her son died the next day without being able to say goodbye to his mom and his mom unable to say goodbye to him. That is the lack of humanity. That is the lack of basic human decency that we're seeing from this administration. And that is why you're all out here. We are now working very hard to make sure that this mom at least is released to go to her son's memorial service. Can we do that together?
Come out for good!
As Ezra said, you know, this has been going on for way too long, since the earliest days of the Trump administration. And I do remember when I got word that a man by the name of Kilmar Abrego Garcia had been snatched off the streets of Maryland and taken from his wife and kids and deposited in a gulag in El Salvador in violation of his constitutional and due process rights. And it's very true, as Ezra said, there are a lot of folks who said, well, let's not worry about that. But you're all here because you worry about protecting our Constitution. And you worry about protecting our democracy. And that is why I went down there, to make sure that he was alive and that he could come back and at least be in front of the courts of the United States of America. And they continue to engage in a political prosecution against him, and so we need to remain firm and stand up for justice in America. We have an administration that doesn't believe in justice for all. They just believe in justice for their buddies and the people they pardoned who beat police officers bloody on Capitol Hill on January 6th. They have no respect for justice and no respect for the rule of law. That's why you're all here, because you love our country and you want to make sure you protect our democracy and our Constitution. So keep turning up the heat, because you know what melts under heat? Ice melts under heat. So no more funding for the Trump administration's lawless ICE operation. Are you with me? Are we in this together? Thank you, patriots all.
ICE out for good. ICE out for good. ICE out for good. I gotta say, y'all, I got teary-eyed hearing about Senator Van Hollen's constituent son. That is, it is hard to live in this moment, because day after day we see atrocity after atrocity. Some of it's reported, some of it we see on the screen. And how do you maintain hope in a moment like this? It feels like they're all powerful. It feels like they're not just slowing down, they're ramping up. They're doing more every day. But let me tell you, that assault on us, on our friends, on our community, that doesn't come from a place of strength. That comes from a sense that they are embattled. They are terrified of us. They are terrified of our whistles. Can I hear those whistles? They're terrified of our organizing. They are terrified that we are going to understand something central to this moment, that there are more of us than there are of them. And we can show up at a rally like this, but we need allies. We need allies in Congress who are actually going to fight. And I want to hear from one of those allies in the Senate right now. Are y'all here? Yeah! Senator Markey, can you come talk to us about the current moment?
Thank you. And thank you all for being here, because last week, a masked ICE thug killed Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old mother of 3 in Minneapolis. She should be alive today and with her children today. Renee Nicole Good was murdered, plain and simple. And this deadly tragedy is yet another example of law enforcement's excessive use of force. It is another example of ICE's lawlessness. It is more evidence that ICE is hurting rather than protecting our communities. President Trump, Vice President Vance, Secretary Noem have all peddled lies about Renee and about the shooting in blatant contradiction of what Americans have seen with their own eyes. This is gaslighting on steroids. It is disgusting. Last week, J.D. Vance said that the ICE thug was just doing his job, murdering a young mother and orphaning her child is not a job, it is a crime. Just yesterday, Trump blamed Renee for her own murder due to her alleged disrespect. When mass federal agents can shoot and kill anyone with impunity solely because their egos are bruised, we must demand accountability. This administration has proved time and time again that it is only interested in vengeance, that it lies, and that it lacks all humanity. Today, 6 federal prosecutors resigned because the Department of Justice wants to investigate Renee's widow rather than Renee's killer. That is a department of injustice. So we must be for a reckoning for Renee and for all victims who have had their rights violated and their lives brutally taken by the reckless and inhumane actions of the Trump administration. ICE has become the criminals they say they are supposed to be catching. And that is why we must end qualified immunity, which shields law enforcement officers from liability for murder and other wrongdoing. In 2020, I introduced with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley a bill to do just that in response to the murder of George Floyd. Now, just 5 years later, Renee was murdered mere blocks from where the police murdered George Floyd. Today, I introduce with, again, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, legislation that abolishes qualified immunity that shields federal law enforcement officers from accountability and gives victims the power to sue. We need a thorough, impartial investigation of Renee Good's murder. We must stop funding DHS and ICE thugs, and we must demand that ICE leave Minneapolis and other communities to prevent further escalation and tragic deaths. I will not rest. I will not rest until justice is achieved. I will not rest until our communities feel protected. I will not rest until the truth of what happened in Minneapolis comes to light. I thank all of you for everything that you are doing to bring justice for Renee Good.
Y'all, we're here to remember Renee Good, but nobody here is under the illusion that Renee Good is the only victim of this lawless regime, right? She just dropped off her kid before they shot her. Mere weeks before that, Silverio Villegas Gonzalez had just dropped off his kid at school when ICE killed him. 2025 was the year that we saw the most people under ICE custody killed by ICE since its founding in over 2 decades. They attack immigrants because they think we're not going to stand up in defense of our neighbors. They attack immigrants as a prelude to attacking all of us. Are we going to treat an attack on one like an attack on all? Are we going to show up in defense of fellow Americans who are being threatened by this regime? Yes! You're damn right we are. I'm pleased to be able to introduce Nadia Salazar from Movimiento Migrante, D.C. Right here.
Thank you. Peace, everyone. My name is Nadia. I'm co-founder and organizer of Movimiento Migrante DC. I'm also senior campaigns manager of the DC Fiscal Policy Institute, and I'm a very proud Bolivian immigrant. Yeah! We're here to mourn, to remember, to know Renee Nicole Good. She was part of our community. She was like you and me. She was a mother that had babies at home waiting for a bedtime story, a daughter with a mom waiting on a daily call, a poet with pieces to still showcase, a wife who had a love waiting for her to bask in, a brave community member who cared for her neighbors and protected them like you do. Renee was doing what we all should be doing, caring for her neighbors and showing up in a time where they're disappearing to a well-oiled deportation machine. Renee's life was taken by an ICE agent who with impunity took her life and prevented medical care to get to her. She deserved to go home to her family. She deserved to celebrate birthdays with her family. She deserved to celebrate holidays. She deserved to see her babies and raise them. She was supposed to be here. It's so telling of where we are when her life was taken less than a mile away from where George Floyd's life was taken, to the same state-sanctioned violence that we're here to stop. Today, I stand here before you to scream, ICE out for good. ICE out of our elementary schools, ICE out of our hospitals, ICE out of our metro stops, our neighborhoods, and our lives. We ask for an ultimate end to this occupation from Gaza to Washington, D.C. We ask for the militarized forces who brought nothing but anguish and fear to leave. We ask for politicians to choose families over feds. I stand here as a parent and wonder what world we're shaping for Luna. I stand here wondering how many mass monsters, how do they sleep at night knowing how many families they've ripped apart, how many families they've separated, and how many people they've shot, how many people they've disappeared. This is a fascist regime. We live in a time where our black neighbors have been disproportionately targeted by a racist judicial system, where we see the same apparatus targeting immigrant communities with the same impunity it has operated with since its inception. After all, this land of the free and home of the brave was built on nothing but genocide and forced labor and kidnappings. After all, America is really living up to its name. The many marginalized. After all, it is the U.S. that exported private prisons and criminalization of bodies for profit, which led to the creation of damn near concentration camps like Secot, where some of our neighbors are ending up at. Today we recommit to rejecting systems and politicians that capitalize from our bodies and our lands and sell us to the highest bidder. Today we remember that we'll seek justice for this tragedy. Today is about Silverio Villegas Gonzalez. Today is about Keith Porter. Today is about ending these killings. Today is about Mr. Brown, who was shot multiple times by HSI agents on Benning Road. It's about the over 25 people who died in ICE custody since this administration began. Today's about seeking justice. As someone who's been taken before by the state for exercising my First Amendment rights on Trump 1.0, I know the whole damn system is complicit and guilty as hell. We denounce this violence. We denounce ICE in our communities. We ask justice for Renee Nicole Good, Silverio Villegas Gonzalez, Keith Porter, Mr. Brown, and all the victims and survivors of state-sanctioned violence. We ask for ICE to leave our communities now. Today, ICE out for good. Today is about safety, which is brought by many of us in this community. To us, safety is clearly defined. Safety is children going to school without the fear of returning to an empty home. Safety is a mom showing up for her migrant neighbors knowing she will return home to her babies without the threat or violence or death. Safety is investing in our communities and not putting a damn penny in the Department of Homeland Security. Safety is investing in us, not our surveillance or disappearance. It is protecting families, not feds. Today is about safety because safety is out for good. A mi comunidad migrante, estamos aquí, los vemos, estamos unidos, estamos fuertes y no nos vamos. Thank you.
Yo, we've been saying ICE out for good. I think we want ICE out for good. And that's a slogan. That's a chant. That's something we all say. Can we nerd out a little bit about how we get ICE out for good? Because there's actually something we can do right now. We can do more than just chant. We can demand our elected officials act, and not just act with symbolic gestures. I like a symbolic gesture as much as the next guy. I like chants. I like outrage from my elected officials. But you know what I really like? I like it when they vote against one damn penny for ICE, which they have the power to do this month. This month, y'all. They're running out of money. This agency's running out of money. They're going to come back to Congress, to your Democratic elected officials, and they're going to say, hey, we need a little bit more cash, buddy. We got to go murder a few more Americans. Can you spare a couple $2 billion? Can we spare a couple $2 billion? Can we spare 2 cents? Go fuck yourself. Not one more dime. But the way we get there is by demanding our elected officials take those votes. It is not currently the unified Democratic position that ICE should be cut. That is not yet the position. How do we get them there? We organize. We organize. We organize. Who here lives in D.C.? I'm sorry, you don't. We organize. We organize. Who here lives in D.C.? I'm sorry, you don't. We organize. They organized. They organized. Join me in welcoming Kay up.
So evening, everyone. My name is Kaya Chatterjee. I'm the Executive Director of Free DC. And as we gather here tonight, this is the 6th month of military occupation of our capital. And you know what they wanted to do by occupying our capital with the military? They wanted to suppress dissent. They wanted to make it so we'd be too afraid to come out. Is that what we did? We are out here and we are still defiant. It's been 6 months of having the military walking around. It's been 6 months of having this surge of federal forces raiding our high school football games, kidnapping our neighbors out of their beds in the middle of the night, violating our rights, and we are still out here defiant. Yeah. And it's been a year, and depending on how you count it, it's been decades or longer that Congress has been attacking D.C. And I want to reveal to people here tonight who don't know, they are trying to remove due process in D.C. Congress is doing that. The House has passed bills to do that because they want to suppress dissent, because they want to prevent a transfer of power, because they want to continue this cruelty forever. Are we going to let them do that? while people are being attacked. Nadia mentioned Philip Brown. I just want to add a little to that story. He went out to get milk for his kids. He went out to get milk for his kids. He was driving on Bennett Road. He went out to get milk. He came home with a bullet hole in his collar. The amazing overreach here is happening because of a lack of any kind of oversight. It is up to us at this point because there's no oversight. Dozens of people are dying in ICE custody. And I want to just take a minute and just bear with me because I want to take a minute and talk about this building behind us, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, the CBP. I want to make it clear to you all how much things are out of control inside this building. There is nobody anymore working in internal affairs. Almost a year ago, the executive director of the Investigative Operations Division was fired. That was the first thing that happened. A year ago. What else happened a year ago, right? Then, 6 months ago, right when the occupation of D.C. began, the assistant commissioner was forced out of that same office. And then in December, just a few weeks ago, the deputy assistant commissioner was pushed out. So right now, no one, literally no one in this building is in charge of internal affairs. There are agents running around killing people, shooting at people, and they are not even pretending that there's anybody in charge of making that stop. And how many people here have worked for the federal government, have been a civil service? We know that every agency is supposed to have some internal oversight. That is gone. It's just gone. And so we cannot have any illusions right now that this FBI or this Department of Justice or this Customs and Border Patrol will do anything to seek out justice. What we have to demand is that we just cut the funding for all of it. Yes. And I don't have any illusions that this is going to happen tomorrow, that all these, these thugs are going to come off our streets, but I do fundamentally believe that it will happen and that it will get better and we will win. But it is going to take work. It's going to take folks like you coming out on a cold, dark night in January, which is amazing. It's going to mean that we have to use our power. Yes, we have to push our elected officials, but here in D.C., we don't even have voting elected officials, so we have to use all the power we have. We've seen it working. We have to use our power as jurors. We have to use our power as taxpayers. We have to use our power as voters. We have to use our power as consumers, and we have to use our power as workers. And I want to invite everyone here to start to use that power. In 1 week from today, instead of gathering at 5 p.m. after work, we're asking you to leave work, to join us right over there on the corner at 14th and Constitution, and join us at 2 p.m. because they need to start understanding that we will not let this go on forever. Eventually, we will stop working. We will stop buying. We will stop doing all of the things that they rely on us to do if they don't stop. So who's with me? Who's going to come out next Tuesday at 2 p.m.? Who's going to leave work? Who's going to show them we are going to shut shit down if they keep attacking us? That we are going to win. We are going to win because we are not going to let them attack us. We are going to shut things down. And if they are going to attack us, we are going to respond. Free DC! Free DC! Free DC!
All right, folks, that was the last of the protest, the anti-Border Patrol protest that we had in Washington, D.C. We're going to come back after a 2-minute break and give you more news right here inside the Impact Studio. We'll see you then. Thanks for coming back, everyone. Man, probably the biggest discussion and could be the biggest decision of this Supreme Court term. We have a number of athletes speaking on what could be this decision on trans athletes being involved in women's sports. Let's go to this as a number of individuals are speaking with the press right now.
I was a track and cross country athlete at Idaho State University. 5 times I lost to a male athlete who identifies as a woman. Being a competitive athlete is about sacrifice. The day after day of getting up early, the events you skip because you can't stay up too late, the limited summer vacations you miss. The limited summer vacations you have because you have to ensure you can train. The family and school events you miss because you have to either compete or train. As collegiate athletes, all 3 of us can attest that we are not making sacrifices for a participation trophy. Those sacrifices get us ever closer to beating the odds and taking home a victory. Having athletic opportunities are a game changer for women. Before Title IX, athletic scholarships for women were almost unheard of. Today, athletics not only opens doors for women in sports, it gives them a chance to win. It gives us a chance to win scholarships, to help support our educations, and pave a future career. Competitive female sports are the gateway to numerous opportunities for women that we didn't have before Title IX. I can attest for this in my life, and so can the women standing next to me. While women can beat the odds, we can't beat biology. As an athlete and a nursing major, it is absurd to suggest that it is fair to put men in women's sports. It's like racing a cheetah against an ocelot. Sure, they're both fast cats with spots, but we all know who is going to win. Today, Idaho and West Virginia stood before the U.S. Supreme Court and said that they wanted to protect fairness for women's sports. I am so proud to be from Idaho, and I am so proud of West Virginia for standing up for the rights of women and girls. Specifically, the Attorney General Labrador and Attorney General McCuskey. Idaho's law protecting women's sports reflects reality. Men and women are different, whether some want to admit it or not. You can't change those differences by suppressing testosterone. Women don't join sports for a participation trophy. We want to win, we work to win, and we deserve a fair shot at winning that trophy and taking home a victory. I'll happily compete against challenging odds, but nobody should lose the race before it has started. We are hopeful that the court will see Idaho and West Virginia's laws for what they are, a respecter of biology, fairness, and women. Thank you. Love you, girls.
Now we'll hear from Alliance Defending Freedom Attorney John Bursch, and then we'll be open for questions after.
Hi everyone, I'm John Bursch. I'm with Alliance Defending Freedom. We had the honor of serving as co-counsel alongside Idaho and West Virginia in defense of their laws protecting women's sports. And we also intervened on behalf of the athletes that you just saw, Maddie Kenyon, Mary Kate Marshall, and Lainey Armstead, to ensure that their rights and the rights of girls nationwide are protected. And just, a side note here, even as trans activists are trying to throw these women out of their own sports and to take away their rights, you can hear that happening here today too. As soon as they tried to be at the microphone, the music started on the other side. They don't want these girls to be able to speak. They want to just erase them from society. Women deserve an equal opportunity for fairness and safety. Today, Idaho and West Virginia asked the Supreme Court to allow states to protect women's sports by affirming a basic truth. Women and men are biologically different. Yet today, the ACLU asked the court to make it impossible to define sex accurately. Identity does not determine your sex, and laws that distinguish between the sexes do not violate federal law when biological differences matter, like on the playing field and in the locker room. No drug can make a man into a woman. Puberty blockers and testosterone suppression do not erase the physical advantages males have over females. All athletes can compete, but they must do so on a level playing field. Now, you heard today that no one is being harmed by this. Justice Kavanaugh said that's not correct. Sports is a zero-sum game. Someone has to win, someone has to lose. In West Virginia, BPJ defeated more than 400 girls over 1,000 times, winning 57 medals. Medals that should have gone to female athletes. That's the real-world cost of ignoring biological reality. Over the last 50 years, under Title IX, women have made historic gains in rights and opportunity. Athletics teaches leadership, grit, discipline, teamwork, and so much more. 94% of women in the C-suite played sports, and we will not allow men to take roster spots, scholarships, and championships away from women. That's not progress. No girl should be sidelined in her own sport. No girl should be taught that safety is something she must surrender. Every girl deserves a real chance to compete and to win. Thank you. We're happy for your questions now. I can take the legal questions. The AGs are here as well. Yeah, questions.
How do you respond to the assertion today that in those cases where there's not a biological difference, based upon testing and other things, how do you account for that? And also, can you talk about why there is a why the laws are discriminatory in that they target trans women but also not trans men? What's the difference there?
Well, first, we categorically reject that there's no advantage. If you look at the Olympic race with Leah Thomas, Thomas suppressed testosterone for more than 2 years, and yet that didn't make a difference. He won a gold medal in the 500 meters and beat 2 former Olympians because the diminution in his athletic ability from testosterone wasn't enough to overcome the 9% gap between men and women in that sport, and that's true across all the sports. As far as the discrimination point, there isn't any discrimination when you distinguish based on biology, and if someone wants to challenge the example of girls being able to play in boy sports but not vice versa, they're able to do that. But that's not what this case is about. This is about making sure that women like these have the opportunity to compete and win in their own sports.
What's your reaction to Joshua Block saying sex should not be defined?
That's completely bizarre. I don't know how you can decide a case interpreting sex under Title IX and under the Equal Protection Clause by not defining sex. Sex, when Title IX was passed, meant biological sex. The entire statute is written with biological distinctions. It even refers to each of the sexes. I don't know how the court can do that, and it says a lot that he felt and the ACLU felt they had to tell the court not to define sex in order for them to survive this case.
I heard you mention Justice Kavanaugh's comments in there. Are you feeling
Well, we definitely think they heard our arguments, and I heard a lot of things that I was really encouraged about today. You heard Justice Sotomayor basically come out and say that she thinks that under the Title IX regulations that the West Virginia and Idaho laws are valid. That's an amazing accomplishment today. In addition, you heard Justice Kavanaugh talking about the zero-sum game, how it denies girls the right to compete and the right to win when we allow boys in their space. You heard Chief Justice Roberts say that this case is very different than Gorsuch, because when you're talking about sex distinctions, as in these sports laws, that is not discriminating against the LGBT community. So we heard a lot that we're thankful to hear today, and we hope that the court will uphold the right that girls can compete in their own sports fairly and safely. Other questions?
Where did you find out about the evidence about Lindsay Hecox not being able to graduate in May?
Boise State University is the university that Hecox attends. It's a client of Idaho. We asked, and the university confirmed that's unlikely to happen this spring.
What does it say that they tried to say that she would graduate in May?
Well, it just shows that throughout the case that Hecox has flipped back and forth with affidavits and statements to the court, and that's why the court should be very skeptical of the mootness argument in that case. They should decide it.
Barbara Ehart, who authored this legislation, said that even when she was writing it with help from ADF, that she expected this case to come to the Supreme Court. So the question is this all a manufactured affair? Is this the goal from the very beginning for us all to be here in a theater that was designed from the very beginning?
This was not manufactured, because from the beginning the concern was male athletes across the country identifying as women, many who had suppressed their testosterone, were winning gold medals in track track and other events across the country. In addition to that, you had terrible injuries in women's volleyball games. Women were being concussed by male players. In women's basketball, there were women who were being driven off the court with injuries because of male athletes. In mixed martial arts, you had a woman who had her orbital bone broken because of a male athlete who identified as women. This was a response to real problems and refusing to recognize the biological distinctions that are inherent in athletic competition. There is nothing staged about this.
We have time for one more question.
There was some discussion about whether the issues should be left to the states or the national approach. Do you guys have any position on whether state by state will you favor a national approach?
Well, we think that eventually Title IX will establish through additional litigation that it is a national approach. And you heard some of that today from some of the advocates, that under the regulations, states have two choices. They can have a co-ed team or they can have sex-based teams. When you have sex-based teams, but then you allow male to compete on the women's teams, that violates Title IX too. This is a solution or a problem that needs a national solution, because it can't be that boys should be allowed to beat female athletes in California and Massachusetts because they refuse to recognize biological distinctions while they're protected in 27 other states. Eventually there will have to be a national solution to taking away women's opportunities.
Thank you guys so much for coming today.
Counsel in both cases. I argued today on behalf of Lindsay Hecox. I just want to say I'm proud to stand with this group and this amazing client and mother and so many people that made this possible to tell the story of what's going on here. I think I was particularly proud today to be able to make sure that the court understood the serious history of discrimination the transgender community has faced, and I'm just so proud to stand by all of these colleagues as we try to help bring the truth to the debate and also just bring some justice here in the court. Thank you.
Karen? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Chase Strangio. I am co-counsel along with Kathleen and Josh, and I'm honored to be here representing BPJ and Lindsay Hecox before the Supreme Court. And the only thing I want to add is that in this moment, in so many halls of power, it feels like people are debating whether or not transgender people exist, whether or not we deserve protections under our Constitution and our civil rights statutes. And today in the Supreme Court, we were able to remind the 9 justices that we do exist, that we deserve protections just like everybody else, and that there has been a history of discrimination against us that warrants the court to take a closer look at the type of government targeting that we've seen over and over again from states and now from the federal government. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Lowy. I am Senior Counsel and Director of Constitutional Law Practice at Lambda Legal, and I am so proud to have stood with my colleagues in representing BPJ and her mom. Today, we had a chance to explain to the court what it really means in concrete terms to deny a kid the opportunity to access all of the things we want our kids to be able to access as they grow and become fully realized adults simply because of who they are, simply because they are transgender. That equal opportunity for our kids to grow and thrive is what our laws and Constitution demand, and that is what we are all here to fight for and will continue to fight for. And we are grateful for the opportunity to make that case to the court today.
Thank you very much.
Kevin Jennings, I'm the CEO of Lambda Legal. We were proud to be co-counsel in Becky's case. What this is about is something I learned as a high school teacher 40 years ago. Every kid has a right to play. Every kid has a right to belong. Every kid has a right to be treated equally. Becky Pepper Jackson is an American hero because she stood up for millions of other kids today and said, we belong, we matter, we are equal. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you very much.
All right, everyone, we're going to take another 2-minute break. Of course, we have more news to give to you right after this 2-minute break. We'll see you then. Everyone, thanks for joining us again. Obviously, we had the president as he was just about to board Marine One earlier, but he had a much longer discussion today earlier at Ford HQ. We're going to get to this right now as he spoke not too long ago.
And they're amazing. That's been back in Washington due to a very important vote that's coming up. They had a choice. Sir, we want to be with you, but if we're not with you, we're going to lose. But we'll still be with you. I said, no, I'd rather have you win. Don't worry about it. So we're going to win the vote. Representatives Lisa McClain, Jack Bergman, John Molinar, Bill Heisinger, Tim Walberg, John James, and Tom Barrett. They're great people, every one of them. And as many of you remember, I came here at the height of the 2024 campaign to lay out my plan to bring jobs and factories and wealth racing back to the United States and coming back to the great state of Michigan. And just a few weeks later, the people of this state and the voters all across the country endorsed that vision in a landslide victory. We won everything. We won all 7 swing states. We won the Electoral College 312 to 226. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of, oh, it's so nice to win the popular vote. I won the popular vote all 3 times too, but we're not going to get into that. But the first time they said I didn't win the popular vote, but I won the Electoral College. So they always said, while he didn't win, this is the way I got introduced every time. While he didn't win the popular vote, he won the Electoral College, you know. So this is the way I was introduced for 4 years. And guess what? We said, I'm going back, we're going to win and we won the popular vote by a lot. So they can't say that crap anymore. And the thing that was most impressive, we won 86% of all counties in America, 2,700 to 525. Think of that, 2,700 to 525. And that's why when you look at the maps on Republican, Democrat, with red being Republican, as most of you know by now, I think, every once in a while you see one where they have it reversed. I said, why we do that? Well, we think it looks better. I said, look, red is Republican. Let's not try and change the voters' minds on things. Just do it that way. And the map was virtually all right. That was about the counties. That was the 2,700 to 505, 550, I think is the exact number. Most importantly, we won a historic mandate to make America great again. And that's what we're doing. We're making America great again like never before. And now, after less than 12 months in office, this is the easiest speech to make. I have great people, and all I'm doing is spewing off what the hell we've done. Even Venezuela wasn't too bad, was it, huh? But you have people, Democrats, they say, I don't know if we should have done Venezuela, I don't know. Anybody that says that hates our country, okay? That was as flawless an attack as there has ever been. And they asked us to help them. They have 50 million barrels of oil. They said, take it. It's $5 billion. And we did. We're working with the Venezuelan people and representatives, and it's amazing. But that was an amazing situation. But we did al-Baghdadi, flawless. We did Soleimani, flawless. We did the Iran nuclear attack where we wiped out their nuclear capacity, which would have been very bad. You wouldn't have peace in the Middle East, flawless. We did them all flawless. I want to keep it going that way, too. I like flawless. Think about Jimmy Carter, the great Jimmy Carter, with the helicopters crashing, the hostages all over the place. Remember that one? Think about Sleepy Joe Biden with Afghanistan. What a disaster. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country, in my opinion. Real dope. Now, after less than 12 months in office, I'm back in Michigan to report to you on the strongest and fastest economic turnaround in our country's history. It's really been historic. There's never been, we're not 12 months, we're through 11 months. We've got $18 trillion being invested in our country. The most of any country ever was 3. We're at 18. There's never been anything like this. You are so lucky I allow you into this room to even be with me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The fake news will say Donald Trump thinks he's hot stuff. Right now I'm feeling pretty good, though, I will say. Oh, you're so lucky to be here. Under our administration, growth is exploding, productivity is soaring, investment is booming, incomes are rising, inflation is defeated, America is respected again like never before, and other than that, we're not doing that well. Now think of all those things I just said. Every single, inflation down, growth at an all-time high, stock market every day, 48 days in a row, 48 days during the course of 11 months, we hit a new high on the stock market, all of them. 1 year ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that was said to me by many leaders. By almost every metric, we have quickly gone from the worst numbers on record to the best and strongest numbers, the most dynamic numbers, and an economy that is far ahead of even my optimistic. I had a very optimistic schedule, I thought. I didn't think it was, but people said it was very optimistic. Turns out to be very pessimistic by compared to what we've done. But we'll go down as the greatest in history, greatest first year in history nobody's ever had, just based on the numbers, based only on the numbers, not based on me, based only on the numbers, because, you know, you get these guys like the governor of California likes to say how well he's doing. California's doing horrendously, but he says how well. We base it on numbers. There's never been numbers like this. Through 4 long years before I took office, crooked Joe Biden and his allies in Congress inflicted the economic nightmare known as stagflation. How many times have you heard the word? We hit it with Joe. We hit everything. What a disaster. Meaning low growth and high inflation. How does that work? Not good. So you have lousy growth and high inflation. In fact, it's the lowest growth ever and the worst inflation in the history of our country. That is really tantamount to not having a good 4 years, right? In other words, Sleepy Joe and the people that ran the auto pen were a complete and total disaster for our nation. They were a disaster for our nation. Had they won the election less than 1 year ago, we would have been, as I've often said, Venezuela on steroids. Now I'm Venezuela's biggest fan. We're working with them, but they came down from a very high number to a disaster, you know, a disaster. And we would have been Venezuela on steroids, and we're bringing Venezuela back, and we're going to be great for Venezuela, great for our country. We're taking in, as I said, millions and millions of barrels of oil. And now they're coming in initially on a daily basis, 50 million, and values of over $5 billion. That's in 1 day. Just think of it, the biggest ships in the world can take 1 million barrels. The biggest ships in the world take 1 million. We have 50 million barrels. We need 50 of the biggest ships in the world just to get it out. We're bringing it in to be refined. It's an incredible feeling. It's great. Winning is a good thing. We're going to work with Venezuela. We'll make that country very strong again. We'll get oil prices down even further. We have it down at about a 6-year low, 7-year low, but we're going to get it down further. Joe Biden gave us a colossal stagflation catastrophe, but my administration's rapidly and very decisively ended that. We have quickly achieved the exact opposite of stagflation. Almost no inflation and super high growth. So we have the highest growth we've ever had. Think of that. The highest growth we've ever had, and we've only been there 11 months. Think of what we can do for the rest of it. But do we have wood around here? I want to knock on a little wood. They have one little, everything's plastic nowadays. It's very tough. Now we have the greatest growth, and we have, you know, inflation way, way down. But we inherited terrible growth, and we inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country. The fake news would say 49 years. So when I say the history, they give me a lot of time, but I believe it's the history. But let's say 49 years. Would you say 49 years is okay, right? It's pretty bad. What do you think, Mr. Senator, Mr. Future Senator? I'd say 49. What sounds worse, 49 years or history? I think 49 years almost sounds worse. Maybe I'll just use it and I won't argue with these people. As of this morning, core inflation for the past 3 months has been just 1.6%. The numbers were just announced just before I came on stage. And GDP is smashing expectations with the fastest growth for this country in many years. The fourth quarter is projected at 5.4%, and that's despite the Democrat shutdown where we lost at least 1.5 points. You know, the Democrat shutdown, we would have had close to 7. Think of that, close to 7. They were projecting to, the fakers were projecting to. And if we keep deregulating and adding more capacity, like I saw today at Ford, and if we don't raise interest rates every time good news is mentioned. You know, in the old days, probably old. I used to be up at these lecterns and I'd say, I'm younger than pretty much everybody in the room. Now I say I'm older than pretty much everybody in the room. I like it the other way better, actually. But you're too young. But in the old days, when you had good numbers, interest rates would go down. When you had good numbers, the market would go through the roof. That's the way we're going to make it again. That's the old-fashioned way. That's the right way. Today, if you announce great numbers, they raise interest rates to try and kill it. So you can never really have the kind of rally you should have. What happens and what we want, we're going to have a lot of great months, a lot of great quarters. I want the market to go up. You announce unbelievable numbers and the market goes down because they know you're going to do everything possible. In the Fed, we have a real stiff in the Fed, but that's for another day. But they raise rates. So everyone says, oh, they announced great numbers, it's great, great, great. And the market goes down because they immediately raise rates. No, when the market goes up, they should lower rates. You want to see 20% and 25%? You want to see what we can do? We've got to go back to an old standard. When there's good news, the market should go up, not go down. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's the way it used to be for most of the time. That's the way you make a country great. But our growth potential is unlimited and could be much higher if we went back to sanity. We're not doing it anymore. We're talking about the head of the Fed, and I want somebody that when the market is doing great, interest rates can go down because our country becomes stronger. See, you view it differently. Our country becomes stronger, and therefore interest rates should go down, not up. They kill every rally. If it's, no matter who, it's beyond me as president, it's no matter who's president. You have a good quarter, and they want to kill it because they're so petrified of inflation. And growth and inflation don't necessarily go hand in hand. You can have growth and very low inflation. In fact, oftentimes growth is good for low inflation. So we're going to work on that, Scott, right? I think we're going to work on that very hard. I mean it so strongly, it's sickening. We announce good numbers and we see the stock market drops 300 points. I say, what the hell is going on? Do you agree with me? It should be just the opposite. All right, Scott agrees, so I'm very happy about this. That means if he didn't agree, I wouldn't do it. But we're already growing double, triple, and even quadruple the speed of almost every other major economy on earth. We're the #1 economy on earth, too. And the results are in, and the Trump economic boom is officially begun. And it's really begun almost from the beginning. It almost begun, if you look at it, really from November 5th. You know, on another metric, just before the election, it was almost impossible to get people to join the military. We had the worst enlistment in the history of our country, the worst. You couldn't get people for the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, Space Force, the Coast Guard. You couldn't get people. And since right after the election, but especially since after January 20th when we took office, we have now the strongest enlistment we've ever had in the history of our country. We've never enlisted people so quickly, so easily. And we enlist by merit now. You know, we won a Supreme Court case that said you hire by merit. You go to college now by merit. Everything's by merit. Our country became great because of merit. And we have done some job. But think of it, a year and a half ago, we had the worst enlistment in history, and now we have the best enlistment. Things like that don't happen. You might go from the bad enlistment to okay, but you don't go from the worst in history to the best in history. But that's what we've done, every one of them. And that includes police and firefighters. It was very hard to get police. It was very hard to get firefighters, and now everybody wants those jobs. In 4 years of Biden, they secured less than $1 trillion of new investment in the United States. So 4 years, less than $1 trillion. In less than 1 year, I have secured commitments for over $18 trillion from all over the world, the most ever for any country. Think of that, though. They did, and I'll tell you what, had she won, it would be a disaster because you would have had people leave. You would have not had $1 trillion, you would have had $5 trillion, $10 trillion leaving the country, and your welfare would have doubled. When you look at what's going on in Minnesota, is that a disgrace? Is that a disgrace? But we'll talk about that. Under Biden, we had the highest trade deficit ever recorded, losing more than $1 trillion every single year. How about that? It was killing Michigan, and everywhere else in our country was being absolutely destroyed. But in a matter of months, largely because of tariff income and the election result, we've slashed that gaping trade deficit by, in a short period of time, 62, it just came out, 62%. People are stunned. The fake news back there, look at those cameras rocking and rolling. No, the fake news back there is, they're very upset about it, actually. But they're stunned. They can't believe it. We cut our trade deficit in actually 10 months was when the number came out. We cut it by 62%. It's going to go better than that now. The stock market is now the highest in history since the election. We've set all of those records, and I think an all-time record that's so important to me because so many people have them is boosting 401ks and retirement accounts for millions and millions of Americans, people that are in the police departments, the fire departments, people that are construction workers. A policeman came up to me recently, a nice guy guarding me. He's a perfect guy to guard me. He was a massive guy, big, strong guy. He said, "Sir, you made me look so good in front of my wife. My wife thought I was a horrible investor because every time I invested, we lost money. And we have a 401k, and I'm up like 85%. She thinks I'm Warren Buffett. She thinks I'm brilliant. She's now calling me brilliant. It makes my life much easier. I love my wife much more now. She calls me brilliant every time. I said, don't worry, you're going to do even better for the next 3 years. But one of the biggest reasons for this unbelievable success has been our historic use of tariffs. There was the tariff that made America strong and powerful in past generations, and then we got off it and we went to the income tax system. Great going, fellas. You know, we were the strongest in 1887, relatively speaking. That was around the McKinley time, and Teddy Roosevelt and some others, but we were really strong. It was all tariffs. And I know what happened. Some of these countries got together and they say, hey, convince the United States that it's no good, the tariff system is unfair to us. And so some genius, I know who, I don't want to get into it, but some genius said, oh, let's go to an income tax system. So instead of foreign companies and countries paying everything, the people started paying. And then after that, you had a depression, but that was a long time. That was in like 1913, you had the tariff switched into income tax. And then in and they like to blame tariffs. You ever notice they blame tariffs? No, they brought tariffs back in 1932. They brought them back to try and save the sucker. But it was in 1929, because a lot of people, you know, the anti-tariff people. Now, an anti-tariff person is a pro-Chinese person, like Koch. This guy's fought me in every election I've ever been in, and I've kicked his ass. He inherited a lot of money, and I don't know the gentleman. But he fights me, and then he goes out and says, I made more money with Trump than I ever made in my life. And then he supports these other people that were total losers. Gives them a lot of money. But he made more money. Everybody makes money with me. I always made money for people. And now it's tariffs that are making money for Michigan. And the entire country is stronger and safer and richer than ever before outside of that period of time. Now, if they had what was called the Great Tariff Act of 1887 or something like that, and it was a great group of people like yourselves. They picked really smart people to sit on a committee. They had so much money they didn't know what to do with it, and they wanted to have the money given away. You know, we built the Panama Canal out of tariffs. We did a lot of things. Panama Canal was the single biggest investment, relatively speaking, that this country's ever made. Would be the equivalent of trillions of dollars today. And Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1. It was also the most profitable thing ever built. Thing. In other words, like buildings or casinos or anything, the most profitable thing ever built was the Panama Canal. And brilliantly, Jimmy Carter thought the country of Panama should have it, even though we lost 36,000 people to the mosquito. You know that, right? To the mosquito and a certain snake, which was not a very nice reptile. This was a brutal reptile. You got bit, it was over. It was just like, bye-bye, everybody. We lost 36,000 people. Malaria, the mosquito, and the snake. And he gave it away for $1. Well, at least we got $1. That's better than most of those guys do. We got $1 for that. Most expensive thing ever built, most profitable thing ever built, too. Makes so much money. Every prediction the critics made about our tariff policy has failed to materialize. The evidence shows overwhelmingly that the tariffs are not paid by American consumers, that they're paid by foreign nations and middlemen And Scott went over that with us before, and they're paid by middlemen. They raise the thing. Countries get involved. They pay them because otherwise they won't have companies. They won't be viable. And we're the big beneficiary. Once again, the so-called experts were 100% wrong, and Trump was right. People of Michigan were 100% right. You elected the right guy. If you had the other person, everybody, we wouldn't even be having a meeting today, probably. There'd be no meeting. The economic club would be saying, like, man, we're doing bad. This is going to be awfully tough to get people to show up. This is going to be tough, the chairman. This is going to not be a good day for us. We don't want to have, let's cancel the meeting immediately. The Trump tariffs have delivered us trillions of dollars of new investment, unprecedented new partnerships on minerals, rare earths, defense, and artificial intelligence, and historic levels of foreign military sales. You know, you have the Supreme Court now going to rule on whether or not we can use tariffs. Can you believe this? A case brought about by people that are China-centric. Foreign-centric, but China-centric. I wouldn't want it if I was China either. You know, China's one of our biggest taxpayers right now. China, would you ever believe you'd hear that? And they've been great. My relationship with President Xi has been great, but we have a group that's great, but but they brought hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into the United States Treasury, helped curb inflation, and helped cut the federal budget deficit by a staggering 27%, and that's only for a short period of time. The number's much bigger than that when you add in the full year. And I've told people I got into a lot of trouble because of the fake news back there. I told people, I said, tariff is my favorite word. I said, my favorite word of every word is tariff. I've loved it for 40 years. I came here many years ago. Remember, they said I didn't come here. Then they found out I did. I got an award in Detroit, in Michigan, many years ago, and still have it. They said it never happened. It did happen, turned out. I didn't notice any apology. But all I did was talk about you're losing your car industry. This was long before I ran for politics. They said you're losing. I said, why are you allowing these foreign nations to take your car? You know, you lost 57% of your car industry. The good news is you're getting it back. But I said, why aren't you using tariffs? I've been very consistent, I will tell you that, for years and years. Even as a private businessman, for years I used to, because I got, for whatever reason, a lot of publicity always. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it happens. And I talk about the importance. But I said recently, I said, tariff is my favorite word in the whole dictionary. There's no word. And I took a lot of heat. They said, what about your wife, your children? What about religion and God? What about Jesus? So I said, all right, it's my fifth favorite word. And since then, I've been fine. They hit me hard, these people, these fake news. They were killing me over tariff. He likes tariff more than his wife, more than religion. He likes tariff more than anything. What a disgrace. So I now call it number 5, and I'm in good shape. That was a rough day. It's my favorite word, and I got killed. Every word, you know, when you go up here, you take a big chance, especially me, because I go off teleprompter about 80% of the time. But isn't it nice to have a president that can go off teleprompter? When you think? Remember the speeches Joe would make? First of all, they'd last a matter of seconds, you know. Thank you very much. You ever notice Joe would always cough before a speech? State of the Union, he gets, ladies and gentlemen. And then it would be like very short. Although the one time they had him spruced up pretty good. Remember, he was high as a kite. He was floating. He was up there way up. That was a bad speech. But, hey, he got through it, you know. He got through it, if you call it getting through. This country was so, can you imagine allowing 25 million people into our country, many of them criminals, many of them murderers? What he did to this country, what they did, because it was the people surrounding that beautiful, resolute desk. But just as I promised you that I've imposed a 25% tariff on all foreign automobiles, I'm standing up for the American auto worker like no president has ever stood up before. You know, those tariffs are keeping the foreign auto workers. Now, if they want to come in and build a plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors, that's great. I love that. Let China come in, let Japan come in. They are. And they'll be building plants, but they're using our labor. U.S. auto factories are now seeing more than $70 billion of new investment. Think of that. They were leaving. They were all going. They were going in the opposite direction. Now they're pouring back. It's the greatest. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And much of that money is coming right here to the car-making capital of the world, Detroit. You lost, I mean, so many places. Since I took office, Ford has announced it will invest $5 billion across its Michigan and Kentucky plants, creating 4,000 new jobs. GM is moving production of the Chevy Blazer and Equinox from Mexico right back here to America. Right? Is my favorite auto worker here by any chance? You know who I'm talking? What happens? Where's Brian? Brian, oh, I see. He made some cash. He's out to Florida. Oh, he's been very disloyal to Detroit. We're going to have to. He is such a great guy, right? Man, that guy fought for me when it wasn't the popular thing to do. He fought for me from day one. Well, you tell him I said hello to him, all right? That guy, he got it. 4 years ago, he got it, right at the beginning. He understood it better than anybody, better than the great economists. They had no clue. And Stellantis is investing $13 billion to expand its U.S.-based manufacturing plant by more than 50%. Stellantis doing a good job. Never before has an administration achieved such sweeping and dramatic turnarounds as has taken place just in this very short period of time. I mean, you're talking about 11 months. 11 months and you have a different business. 11 months and you're booming. I just spoke to an AI guy, and that's booming too. You know, we're leading China in AI by a lot. I'm letting them build their own electric plants because people are saying, you know, the amount of electricity they need twice as much as electricity currently in the United States for every other business, home, factory. They need double. So I said, we can't do that. And then I had the idea. When they build these $50 billion plants, I'm going to let them build, and they're already building big electric plants to take care of their plant. And any excess electricity, they'll sell it back to our country. It's an unbelievable, and therefore, we're going to build, I think if they really added, you know, you hear how much, and I have great respect for China, but you hear they're building a lot of electricity, but we are too. But we're having it built privately. They're going to own their own electric. They're becoming their own electricity producer. And when they heard this idea, they thought it was great, but they didn't take it seriously because they said it's too good to be true. But then they realized that I was serious. That we're getting them 2- and 3-week approvals. They don't have to wait for 20 years before they get rejected. You know, in the old days, they had to wait for 20 years, and then they get rejected at the end of 20 years. Guys would give up their whole career trying to get one approval, and then they get rejected. In every aspect of our agenda, we're putting America first, and nothing will stand in our way. Nothing's going to stand in our way. Nothing. So one of our top priorities in this mission is promoting greater affordability. Now, that's a word used by the Democrats. They're the ones that cause the problem. The one thing, they stick together. They don't have some of the people that we have. I don't know, it's a genetic thing. It's something in the blood. We got some real losers, mostly great. But I wouldn't use the name Romney because I'm in his sort of territory, so I would never use that name. But all right, I'll use it. They don't have a Mitt Romney that votes against everything. They don't have a Rand Paul that votes against everything. I got him elected twice. He was a stone-cold loser. I went to Kentucky where I won by a lot. I did a rally for him. Then I did another rally, he won. Then I went the second time, he won. Then he votes against all the time. It's just crazy. I don't get it. Then you have Lisa Murkowski and you have Susan Collins. Disasters. And you had a gentleman from Indiana that I don't believe it, Todd Young, he voted against. And you'd say, why are you voting against? They can't give you an answer. They're unable to give you an answer. It's like, why are they against the attack on Venezuela? They're against the attack after they found out it was the most successful attack, probably the most talented, most brilliant tactically attack that we've had maybe in 100 years. And they're against it. Why? It's one thing if the attack failed. I'd probably do that too, or change. I'd be in favor. Then if it failed, I'd say, I told them not to do it. That's what they do. But here we have one of the most successful attacks ever, and they find a way to be against it. It's pretty amazing. But it's a shame, and we have some others, but not many. We have a great party, but we have people, the Democrats, whether you like them or not, they stick together like glue. They have horrible policy. Thank God they have horrible policy, because they're smart, they're evil, they're vicious, but they have bad policy. For instance, you could be a genius and try selling men playing in women's sport. You can be a genius, try selling transgender for everybody, open borders, let the world come in, let the world's prison population come into the United States, including all of the murders, 11,888. That's what we're trying to get out of Chicago and Minnesota and these places. So they stick together, which I admire because I'm a very loyal person, but they have horrible policy. Can you imagine if they had good policy? They were on this morning talking all the reasons that men should be playing in women's sports. They had a football guy there, flag football. This guy was like 6'6", he weighed 290 pounds with zero body fat. And they had a few young women that were the size of his leg. He wouldn't have had to run. He could have just walked. They couldn't have done a thing about it. 10 of them would have to jump on him that wouldn't have had any impact. I don't think he would have been like a fly. It's so ridiculous. It's so demeaning to women. It's so demeaning. Look at the weightlifting records. I mean, the record got beaten by 112 pounds, a record that stood for 18 years. 1 ounce that put on stood for 18 years. Guy comes along who was a poor lifter as a man. He was at the lower portion of the class.
Not to interrupt the president here, but we do want to take a quick 2-minute break, and I promise we'll come back to his speech in 2 minutes. Thanks for coming back here on WCNC Plus. We're going to go back to the president's speech, and we'll listen in right now with you.
They've fought for years to beat that record. How about the swimming records? I mean, you can go to sleep during the time the man comes in and the woman. You can go take a nap for a little while. How about the long-distance race that took place not so long ago? Long distance, these marathon deals. They had top men, top women. The man came in. The woman came in 5 hours and 14 minutes and 36 seconds. behind the man. Think of it. You're waiting, the man comes in, now you're waiting 5 hours. What do you do if you're the parents? You go home and sleep for a while. Who the hell wants that? It's so demeaning to women and who are great athletes. It's so demeaning to them, and it's right now in the Supreme Court. I can't believe it would even go to the Supreme Court. I mean, could you imagine 20 years ago talking about men playing in women's sports? They'd think you're crazy. Or transgender for everybody? If you said there will be no mutilation on children, that's one of my standard lines. We will not allow the mutilation of a child. Can you imagine having to say that 15 years ago? People would say, is that guy crazy? Of course we won't. But we're living in a different time. It's a crazy time we're living in. After real wages plummeted by $3,000 under Sleepy Joe Biden, real wages are up by $1,300 in less than 1 year under President Trump. For construction workers, wages are up $1,800. Don't forget, they were down $3,000. Factory workers over $2,000, and for many other workers, over $5,000. And I just gave the military, because we're doing so well with taking in so much money with the tariffs, I just gave them $1,776. You saw that, right? Did you see that? They had 75, and I said, you know, if you had one more dollar at 1776, they said, that was a good idea. We could afford one more dollar. We gave them 1776. Meanwhile, grocery prices are starting to go rapidly down. Rent is down. Airfares are down. Hotel rates are down. Cell phone prices are down. And we're just getting started. But more importantly than going down, our growth is through the roof. It's way up. Among my first acts in office was to end the radical left war on oil and gas and stop the crusade to kill American energy, and frankly, to open up cars so that you don't have to have an electric car. I love electric cars. I think they're great. I like Elon a lot. I don't think he was too happy with my policy of opening it up, and I can understand that. But I've been saying it for 4 years. They wanted everybody to have an electric car in a very short period of time. There was no way to build the stations. There was no way to get it done. I want you to have gasoline-powered cars. I want you to have electric. I want you to have hybrids. I want you to have everything. Hydrogen, I don't know about. I'm hearing it's not testing so well. It's fine, except when there's an explosion, you're a goner. Now, have you heard that with hydrogen? One guy's trying to sell hydrogen, and I say, yeah, but, sir, that only happens 1 in 100. Oh, great. When it happens, they find the body like 300 yards down the road. So I said, I'll pass on hydrogen. Maybe there's something I don't know about, but is anybody in the hydrogen car business? Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in 17 states and under $2 in many places. We have some states it's $1.95, $1.99, $1.97. As we speak, these are gas stations, and think of that. We have gas stations in the Detroit area where you can fill up for less than $2.30 a gallon, whereas 2 years ago it was $4.50, and in many places it was way over $5. Think of that, $2.30. You see it. That's like a massive tax cut, which we gave you under the great big beautiful bill, by the way. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. And with our extremely successful operation in Venezuela earlier this month, that number soon is going to go lower because we're going to have a lot more energy. We're going to have a lot more, as opposed to a country that's going to be totally shut down. No fuel, no gasoline, and it's, you know, they say it's got more than Saudi Arabia. Who knows? It's got a lot. And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers, look, 1 death is too much. But I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. And I say, make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over. And it's all very fragile. What would have happened to us? I'm telling you. If I didn't win this election, what would have happened to us? In the coming weeks, I will be laying out even more plans to help bring back affordability. And again, remember, that's a fake word by Democrats. Prices were too high. They caused the high price. They never want to talk about affordability. They always go, this is an election about affordability. I say, they caused it. But they're good at that stuff. They're good at that stuff. They're fake, and they're good at that stuff. It's an election about high prices that was caused by the Democrats and that I brought down a lot. And remember, when you see energy coming down like I brought it down, and gasoline coming down, that brings everything else down. It's so much bigger than any other factor. When gasoline gets to be $1.99 a gallon, everything comes down. The donuts come down, the truck that delivers the donuts, the stove that makes the donuts, the whole thing, it all comes down, and it's coming down much faster than anybody can even believe. And remember, though, I always say, because normally when that goes down, the world comes down. That's the bad way of bringing it down. Our growth is through the roof. So I always want to say that whenever I say prices are coming down, but our growth is going way up. Two beautiful events, the exact opposite of the Biden administration. As part of those efforts at Davos next week, I'm going to provide much more detail about our housing policies so that every American who wants to own a home will be able to afford one. We have some great things happening with housing, as you know. You saw the $200 billion buy-in on bonds and mortgages. This will include a ban on large institutional investors buying up single-family homes all over the country and making it impossible for people to buy a home. And I've also announced that the U.S. government is purchasing $200 billion of mortgage bonds to bring down mortgage rates, and it's had a huge impact. It's already started. And just last week, the average 30-year mortgage dropped below 6% for the first time in many years. It's coming down very rapidly, and that's not with the help of the Fed. If I had the help of the Fed, it would be easier. But that jerk will be gone soon. In addition, I proudly called for the credit card companies to cap interest rates at 10% for 1 year, because they're getting 28% and 30% and 32%. And it's unfair. The rates are way too high. To provide further relief to hardworking Americans, we'll also be confronting one of the biggest factors in driving up prices, the monstrosity known as the Unaffordable Care Act. You know what that is, right? It's Obamacare. It's a great name, Unaffordable Care Act. Nope. Did anybody ever think of that one before? It's true. It's the Unaffordable Care Act. Obamacare was a gift to make health insurance companies rich at the expense of the American people. In particular, the so-called enhanced premium tax credits were a corrupt payoff to the insurers, whose stock prices went up more than 1,000% after Obamacare was signed. I want the same money I want it to go directly, very simple. I want the money, those big amounts of money paid for by the government, to go directly to the people so they can buy the health care that's right for them. They can negotiate their own deal, health care savings account, but they'll buy their own health care, and everybody loves it. That's why later this week, I'll announce our health care affordability framework that will reduce premiums for millions of lower drug prices, delivering price transparency and demand honesty and accountability from insurance companies all over the country, all over the world, actually. Healthcare costs will come down very fast with my most favored nation executive order. We're doing most favored nation drug prices. When we would have drug prices stay the same, everybody thought it was great. They're going to be coming down thousands of percents. We're standing up to special interests and slashing prescription drug prices by 300, 400, 500, and even 600% and more. I mean, think of that. On that alone, we should win the midterms in a landslide. I'm doing favored nations. The country that pays the lowest price in the world is the price that we're going to pay. And we got that because of tariffs, because I said to the countries they wouldn't approve it. The drug companies were tough, but they were fine. But they said the countries will never do it because you have a pill that sells for $10, you have to sell it for $20 or $30, so you'd have to double or triple the price of their health care there for prescription drugs. Ours would come down from $130 to $20. Theirs would go from $10 to $20, the world being a bigger place. And it was unbelievable, but the countries wouldn't do it, so I called the countries. I said, if you don't do it, then I'm going to put a tariff on you. And the tariff's going to be 20 times more than the cost that you're having to pay for fair health care. And every one of them said, sir, we agree with you 100%. We would be honored to do it. It was really rather amazing. We could never do it. So think of that. You have most favored drug prices. Your drug prices are going to go down like from $100 to $10. Nobody can believe it. And we can't get the fake news to write about it. It's the biggest thing to happen in medicine. It's the biggest thing to happen in healthcare. And I cannot get the New York Times, I cannot get anybody to write about it. When we got it done and we announced it, it was on a page way in the back of the New York Times. Same with others. They don't want to talk about it. You know why? Because it's so good. It's the biggest thing to happen. Over the past 12 months, almost every promise I made to you right here in 2024 has been kept. I've kept all my promises and much more. I mean, I've given you much more than I gave you promises, and I produced much more than I said I was going to produce. I gave you the largest tax cuts in American history, cutting taxes across the board in the great, big, beautiful bill. And as I told you, I mean, who would have gotten you no tax on tips, as I said before. No tax, I said over and over again, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our seniors. Any senior should be voting for us because the Democrats won't do this. It doesn't work for them. And we also made interest on car loans fully tax deductible so that when you go out and buy a car, if you have a mortgage or you get a loan on a car, you're allowed to deduct interest for the first time ever. That's never happened before. But only for cars that are stamped with the beautiful words, made in the USA. In other words, we're only letting that take place if the car is made like in Detroit or in the USA. Our tax cuts also provided 100% bonus depreciation on all new equipment and capital investments, meaning that for any manufacturer looking to bring production back to America, you can write it all off, everything, not in 38 years, not in 44 years, in 1 year. You write the whole thing off in 1 year. That's the biggest thing there. I think that's the biggest thing. That's the big job producer. And I've cut an unprecedented number of burdensome regulations. We're number one in the history of our country in cutting regulations. I promised to cut 10 old regulations for every one new regulation. So if we put on a regulation, the only way I'll allow it to happen is if the secretary, like Scott Bessent, cuts 10 old regulations. But instead, last year we actually cut 129 regulations for every one that we put in. Think of that. So nobody's ever cut regulations like I have. I terminated the insane electric vehicle mandate and ended the war on internal combustion engines. Once and for all, those engines were gone. And some people like them. And if they like them, great. And if they like electric, if they like any form of propulsion, any way you want to propel your car is okay, except for a couple of them, as I discussed. I permanently stopped Joe Biden's ridiculous CAFE standards. You know what the CAFE standards are? They're standards that make it impossible for you to build a car affordably. They make it impossible for a car to really work right. The CAFE standards sound so nice. The CAFE standards, it's environmental standards that are impossible to meet. And we're canceling the EPA's absurd tailpipe emission standard, one of the worst ever. And I revoked the California emissions waiver to stop San Francisco communists from regulating automobiles all over our nation, all over our world. Boy, I have done so much for the car industry. It's crazy. Nobody thought it was possible to do this. And that's why your industry, and not everybody's in the car industry in this. How many people are in the car industry in this room, in one way or another? That's a lot, relatively. It's not bad. Another urgent priority for bringing down the cost of living is to stop the colossal fraud that is bleeding American taxpayers absolutely dry. The fraud being committed by the Somali population in Minnesota, have you heard of them? They're lovely people, is monumental. And California, Illinois, New York, and others are just as bad. Our country has been losing over $500 billion to fraud every single year, but those days are over. We have the best group you've ever seen assembled going after fraud. In Minnesota, we're cracking down on the Somali scams, ending the brazen and shameless theft of taxpayer dollars. Well, it's going on in Maine, too, with Somalis. You know, and they don't take our ships anymore. You know why? We hit them with the same missile that we use to hit the drug dealers coming in with the boats. You know, we have drugs coming in by sea down 97%. You've seen that? And we're trying we're really trying hard to find out who the hell is the other 3%. But we have them down 97%. And we're going to start hitting them by land, too. The hard part is done. And by sea, nobody's coming. It hasn't been great for the fishing industry, however. Those that have a fishing boat, they're having a hard time getting customers. But you can't have everything. Nobody wants to go on boats. Nobody wants to go like 25 miles an hour. When you see a boat with 5 engines on the back of it going 65 miles an hour, and it's loaded up with hundreds of bags that you see cellophane with white, typically it's not fishing. How about the couple of submarines we took down? We took out 2 submarines, and the Democrats say they were fishing. No, they were submarines. They were actually, they build a very fast, it's a drug-carrying submarine. They have a lot of money. And we took them out, and the Democrats claimed that they were fishing. We shouldn't ruin people's beautiful fishing journey. It's unbelievable what we have to go through. It's really a shame, actually. We froze it all, children's payments to those states that we're talking about, and we will now require proof of attendance in order to receive federal funding for child care or any of that. How about all these child care places in Minnesota where there is no children? They go there, they get paid millions and millions of dollars. The biggest operation in all of Minnesota had no children. And we pay millions of dollars. They're scammers. They're scammers. They always will be. And we're getting them out, and we're not going to pay them. We're not going to pay Minnesota. Right, Scott? We're not paying Minnesota any more money for any of that crap. It's a big scam. It's a giant scam run by an incompetent, crooked governor. He's an incompetent, crooked guy. And also, we're freezing any and all welfare payments going to illegal immigrants that will start effective immediately. So when illegals come into California, Gavin Newsom, they come into California, and they send us bills for people coming in. We're not paying it. So we're working on that very strongly. Just don't pay it. As Nancy Reagan would say, just say no. You remember Nancy Reagan? Just say no to drugs. It's a little more difficult than that, I guess, right? But just say no. Additionally, from this moment forward, if you're on public assistance, like almost all Somalis are, did you see where 94% of them are on public assistance? You can't wire money out of the country back to your bank account from where you came. But more importantly, we probably aren't even going to give them the money anymore, the money going to them, because of the tremendous abuse and probably illegality being perpetrated on our country. We're not going to give them the money. We're not giving them the money. It's massive numbers of people are scamming our country. You know, they came from a place with nothing, and they come here and they drive around in Mercedes-Benz. You know, the Mercedes-Benz dealers do well in that area of Minnesota. Can you believe it? They have nothing. They get welfare payments, and they have Mercedes-Benzes. It angers me so much, but we're going to straighten out our country. This was done under Biden and Obama, very much under Obama. It all started under Obama. And we just can't. We've got a great country. We're not going to screw it up. But this was one of the great scams ever. They have the same thing, Somali in Maine. Who would think? I never saw that happening. But in Maine, it's really crooked as hell, too. But it's not just Somali. It is them, but it's not just. There are many other places, many other people. The whole country. If we stop this fraud, this massive fraud, we're going to have a balanced budget. That's how much money you're talking. We'll have a balanced budget without all the growth I'm talking about. And then you add the growth, we got one hell of a country. We're giving 90-day notices to places like California, Scott. Right away, we're going to send out that notice. Who would bill the federal government as people poured into the state to send those people back, because no country can afford to do it. No country can afford to take in millions of people, pay for their education, their health care, their hospitals. You just can't do it. And we all have a heart. You can't do it. But many of those people are murderers. They're people released from jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums. They're people that are drug dealers. They're addicts. Additionally, starting February 1st, we're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities, because They do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens, and it breeds fraud and crime and all of the other problems that come. So we're not making any payment to anybody that supports sanctuary cities. We have also suspended nearly 8,000 SBA loans, Small Business Association loans, to suspected scammers in Minnesota, of which there are many. It's a great state. It was a great state. Now it's getting destroyed by that stupid governor. What a stupid guy he is. But he's a crook. I mean, he's an incompetent guy, but he's a crook. He allowed this to go. You can't have corruption on a scale that nobody's ever seen before, and you're sitting as a governor and you don't know what's going on. It's impossible, even though he's a stupid guy. We're investigating large-scale visa fraud, and the Department of Justice has already charged nearly 100 people in criminal conspiracies in Minnesota. They're all over the place. Last week we announced that I'm creating a brand new division at the Department of Justice, a legal strike force led by a really tough, smart new Attorney General for fraud. He's a fantastic young guy. He's so impassioned to do this properly. We intend to imprison any fraudster, politician, or public official involved in these sick plots to loot and pillage our country. Think of that Ilan Omar. She lives in Somalia. They don't have a government. They don't have a military. They don't have police. They don't have anything. All they have is murder and robbing ships, bringing in ships, pirates. That's stopped. Same missile, ping. That's the end of them. It's amazing how that can stop corruption. Those missiles, they never miss, you know. The same one, exactly the same one. But think of it, she comes from a country with nothing, and she comes here and she tells us about our Constitution. I have a constitutional right to rip off the country. I guess she's a total scam artist. Anybody knows it. How do you let her get away with it? AOC +3. She was one of the three. They're all scammers. They're so bad for our country. They're so bad for our country. Our ICE operation in Minnesota, for example, is finding hundreds of killers, violent predators, and child rapists, some of the worst criminal offenders anywhere in the world, murderers all over the place. All we want to do is get them out. Did you see the pictures that we put up? Hundreds of them. Murderers wanted for murder, wanted for the worst drug selling. One of them is one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. And vicious, sells bad drugs too. Bad drugs, like if you take a tiny little morsel, your child is dead. And we're getting them. But it's hard to get them because they make it so impossible for you. And you wonder why. Why would they do that? You know, do they want to live with murderers? Do they want to live with these people that are emptied out from prisons? They have a lot of people. One of the reasons I was so angry with Venezuela, they emptied their prisons almost entirely into the United States of America. Tren de Aragua was the gang, one of the worst, probably the most violent gang there is anywhere in the world, they say. We're getting them out. We've got a lot of them out already, but we're getting them out. We're also going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of defrauding our citizens. We're going to get them the hell out of here fast. And if you come to America to rob Americans, we're throwing you in jail and we're sending you back to the place from where you came. We're throwing you right in jail. And they know it, too. And one of the reasons they're doing these fake riots, I mean, they're just terrible. I mean, you see it's so fake. Shame, shame, shame. You see the woman. That's all practice. They go practice. They go to areas, they take hotel rooms, and they all practice together. It's a whole scam. We're finding out who's funding all this stuff, too. We pretty much know. But in conclusion, as we liberate our country from this cultural scourge and the plague of corruption and fraud, we'll rediscover the natural energy and native spirit that truly makes America great again, like we're doing with Detroit and Michigan. If we get rid of fraud and do our job properly on the trillions that are being extorted out of our country from corrupt and incompetent governors like Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, and Tim Walz, we will very soon have a balanced budget, and that's the kind of money that we're talking about. We're talking about massive amounts of money. Our country wasn't built by people who tried to lie and cheat and scam their way to success. It was built by legends like Henry Ford, Henry Dow, Thomas Edison, the Kellogg brothers, Alfred P. Sloan, the founder of General Motors, men who lifted up American workers and strengthened our nation beyond even belief. And we're doing the same exact thing right now. I think we're doing it even better. This is the fierce spirit of patriotic free enterprise that we're now unleashing once again. We are unleashing it like maybe never before. Together we have turned the page forever on the failed left-wing model that makes our America poor, desolate, and makes people feel sorry for us. That's what we had. We had a country where our leader was laughed at and our country was scorned. We had a country that was laughed at. They laughed at us 2 years ago. They laughed at us. They thought we were fools. They thought we were stupid people. Now we're seeing that they're not the smart ones. We are. But we have a great America, and we're going to enrich it. And foreign nations, foreign migrants, criminal fraudsters, and corrupt politicians are not going to play a role anymore. They're going to be in jail. Under the Trump administration, we're reclaiming America's dignity, rebuilding America's wealth, and we're putting the productive, hardworking American citizen at the center of every single thing that we do. They were the ones that built America, and they will build it up again, and that's what they're doing at levels nobody thought was possible. So today, after less than 1 year, our border is secure. Remember, they talked about the border, how bad? In 3 weeks, I didn't go to Congress. I said, secure our border. And they did. Remember Biden, he said, I have to get approval from Congress. Had nothing to do with Congress, had to do with respect. Our spirit is restored. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our economy is booming like I think you'll see soon, like never before. Our military is strong and unprecedented. I rebuilt our military in my first term. Our workers are thriving, and our auto industry is returning to the country where we all began and where it all began, and frankly, a country that we love. The United States is winning again, and we're rapidly making America and the great state of Michigan greater and more prosperous than ever before. I want to again thank the Detroit Economic Club. You do a fantastic job, so respected. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
All right, folks, we did listen to the president. We don't have much time, but we do want to get over to House Democrats just to hear from them as they were speaking a little bit earlier, so we can give you a little bit of both sides here before we close out on WCNC+.
In the best interest of the American people, not for oil profits, not for big donors, not for the next election. What my families in my district is begging for is relief at the grocery store. They need child care that doesn't break the bank. They are begging for houses that they can afford and health care that does not drain their life savings. The people on this stage is ready to get to work. House Democrats are ready to get to work. We're not going to stand for another costly forever war while our constituents struggle to pay their bills. Thank you so much, and I yield to the chairman for questions.
Thank you, Derek. Questions? Nick?
I want to ask about DHS funding. What is the posture of the caucus now towards a year-long CR on DHS funding versus, putting conditions somehow through negotiation?
Well, we like passing appropriations bills, but the appropriations bills have to be fair. They have to have reasonable allocations. Democrats put additional language forward to our colleagues on the other side of the aisle. It's not language that they could support, and so ultimately the Homeland bill fell out of the package that we have in front of us this week. We want accountability and oversight. I know Donald Trump and Kristi Noem and their friends do not. want accountability and oversight, but House Democrats want accountability and oversight to ICE. They should have to notify Congress. They should have to come to Congress. They should have to continue to testify to Congress as to what they are doing. But more importantly, they need to look out for the American people. Right now, they are terrorizing people in the streets of this country. They are hurting innocent individuals. They are detaining U.S. citizens. They are killing people. That's what House Democrats want answers to. And if DHS isn't willing to provide those answers, Democrats will continue to use every tool we can in order to push for them. So it is not part of the package. It could be in front of us in future packages. That's a decision for Rosa DeLauro and Tom Cole. Michael.
All right, folks, that's our time here on WCNC Plus. Don't forget, we'll see you tonight.